power of an honest heart, why it's important or meaningful to be authentic, to practice authenticity, or being a conscious person. These are the kind of terms that are around at the moment. So this is an important concept that is, I'm not sure how well it's understood by people. I think that a lot of people, the question is, why be authentic? You know, why do that? What's the point of that? And I really want to explain on an energetic, fundamental level what's actually going on when someone is being authentic, or practicing authenticity. What it means practically is that you are honest with your emotions and your thoughts, and just being your most honest and true self in all areas. But particularly today we're going to be talking about the emotional level, which is really what everything else is kind of stemming from in a way. The way that you express yourself is a reflection of your ability to be honest within your emotional self with yourself, because we don't just be inauthentic with one another, we also can be inauthentic with ourselves. We lie about the way that we feel inside, and our brains can get very good at that, to the point where it's very automatic and it's not even thought about, and you don't know that that's happening until you explore inwards. A good example of that is when we are dissociated from the way that we feel, meaning we're not in touch, we're not feeling, for example, a heavy grief, and we may walk around like, I'm fine, and you may like not be feeling it, but if you were to close your eyes for a minute and stop for a minute, you realize that you're carrying something. So the practice of authenticity is to really be getting in touch with your personal truth, and what you are feeling, because, as I said, everything else is a reflection and expression of that. If you don't know how you feel, you can't communicate honestly outwardly, because you may say something and you within yourself feel that that's your truth, and then later discern through meditation or things coming up that it is not your truth. So for us to trust one another and trust ourselves, we have to have a constant practice of going inwards, and that, I would summarize that as authenticity relative to what we're talking about. I have a whiteboard thing that I made because I wanted to explain on an electrical level what's actually happening and why it's so important and meaningful and actually unhelpful and damaging to not be honest with yourself and what's going on for you. So I'm going to try to explain this the best I can. It's weird because it looks backwards on the thing. Okay, but I tested it and it's not backwards. Okay, this line through the middle here is you / your higher self. That's you, okay? And you're inseparable from the higher self. So you are the same entity. You're in physical form right now. So you could say that the line is the steady current, steady electrical current of your higher being. It is, I've written diffused, it is neutral, because we need to understand that we're actually electrical beings, and when you have an activated emotion, you have an electrical charge that is happening, what some people call a trigger. When you have inactivity, say in meditation where you practice non-resistance and you are in an observation of your thoughts and things, you are diffused electrically. You are neutral, it's a neutral charge. I like the word diffused. So, okay, this is you, and this is like your emotional equilibrium or lack thereof. And I've written, I don't know, I hope you can see. I'll explain anyway, even if you can't read it. It'll work. So sadness is like a little dip, right? Further down, beneath sadness is going to be something a bit stronger, like grief, right? And this is you dipping into different emotions and things. And, you know, you go up into sort of positive spectrum and you go down into lower, less good feeling spectrum. And so we're going up and down along our emotions, and here we have depression, like, so deep down here past sadness and grief you've got depression, and at the bottom you've got something like powerlessness. That might be the tone of a deepest negativity. I say negativity, but what I want to explain though, but regarding positivity and negativity, or positive charges and negative charges, which is feelings, emotional feelings, is that when you feel good feelings, so over here, up here, you can see we've got like happiness. I hope you can see that, happiness, and joy a bit higher up. I've got asterisks next to them because the asterisk is emotions that are in resonance with the higher self. So when you're feeling positive type of emotions or tones, regardless of their extremity, you are in resonance with the higher self, and actually that's why it feels good, because the base essence of the higher self, there is a diffusion and a neutrality, but there's also when you are incarnate and you experience resonance with the higher self, you have an emotional body when you're incarnate. So the experience is things like joy and great peace and bliss and all those things. That's why that comes about if you have a strong enlightenment type experience. Because there is a joyousness that your higher self has for just being alive. That's the quality of the higher self, which is the quality of God. And love, I should add. So anyway, when you are resonating electrically in alignment on the same wavelength, however you want to explain that, with the higher self, you feel tones that feel positive in the body, emotional and physical. So happiness, joy, etc. When you feel lower emotions, you are actually in discordance with the higher self. So out of alignment, not vibrationally or energetically matching the electrical resonance of the higher self. So that's my key is a little dot here. So that's why we've got a dot. Again, sadness, grief, depression, powerlessness. Dot equals discordance with higher self. So that's a very important thing to realize, because then you understand what's happening actually on an electrical level. And we realize why emotions feel good versus bad. So when it comes to authenticity, though, and healing, this is the power of an honest heart and authenticity, is what you're doing when you allow yourself, don't be in denial of thoughts and feelings that you have, be authentic with the way that you are feeling. When you allow, it's an allowing those emotions such as sadness or depression, something like that, you are actually bringing the neutrality, the diffused energy of the higher self, and sometimes even qualities such as love, into the depression and powerlessness, etc. And what that actually powerfully, awesomely, magically does is creates diffusion. It actually allows and helps depression or powerlessness, whatever it is, to dissipate, to soften, because all these electrical charges are trying to do is come into your awareness so that you may do exactly that, bring a neutrality to these feelings so as to diffuse them electrically. Then they move through the body instead of being stuck in the body electrically as they have done. So that is why it's so powerful to be authentic, is the authenticity that we're talking about is one that is conscious. So it means that you are consciously, when you experience the sadness or something, you are like, I am sad. And you are practicing, it is a practice, to be less and less inside of the electrical charge that is sadness. I'm going to put this down for a minute and then we'll come back to it. 1 second. So, when you bring this diffusion, what we want to do is have the higher self's natural state is actually one of just awareness. It is a neutral, loving awareness. And so to even do that, you have to be to even practice the thing of observing emotions so that they may electrically diffuse and pass through you finally and no longer be stored and carried electrically in the body, you need to be willing to feel what you feel. You need to be willing to be honest with what's going on for you. And it's a constant practice. Actually, I will get this again for a minute. 1 second. So, what we're talking about now, actually, is that if you are inauthentic and you are not practicing bringing your awareness to your emotional truth, your emotions, you kind of run along in life a bit like these ones, just up, down, up, down, up, down. And maybe there's, in the positive spectrum, there's things like calm and feeling all right, I don't know, feeling, and even happiness, you know. But if you are in resistance to, this usually happens, this up and down, not very deep, usually happens because we don't want to feel strong lower emotions. So if you are in resistance to actually admitting to and feeling your depression or powerlessness that you're carrying, and we are all carrying these qualities because we live in a world that has conditioned us and essentially created a lot of trauma. If you're not willing to go here, you are going to be incapable of going up here into joy as well. You stay in this kind of humdrum, kind of not very deep, strong emotional capacity. And that was not the intention here. The intention was not for you to incarnate and just kind of, I don't know, chill along. What was actually the intention is this, the depth of consciousness. Wait, I'm gonna get it on the thing. Yeah. So when you become capable, when you become willing to feel, you are providing a depth of consciousness, which means depth of emotion and even greater things. What it is actually about is about creation and creating this universe, and further expanding and exploring consciousness itself through the exploration of your emotional self, which is just your emotional self is just a system that is interpreting incarnate light. That's kind of what it is. So it's a my guys are saying it's like a tool, it's like a mechanism through which God Force has decided to explore into consciousness and to explore into how low can I go, how high can I go, what's going to happen if we go over here, and what happens. The answer is creation, a new birthing of new forms of consciousness and things that we can not even really understand. I'm just looking at my diagram down there. But we create new light. There is something about going into the lower state, for example, creating purification through a practiced presence of utilizing the higher self's diffusion quality and holding space for this part of yourself, depression, powerlessness, whatever. It can arise, it can leave your system, and then what remains is space for your entire light to come down into your body. Your entire light means your entire life force. Many of us, we are not really living, we are not fully even, we are incarnate, we are here, but we're not here. There's like a prevalence of dissociation going on, and a big sort of, from the spiritualish, metaphysicalish level, that is a lack of allowing the life force to flow through you because we are carrying around these emotional scars. And energetically, that's what they look like, and that's probably another topic. But yeah, we need to be willing to go deep. It's like you came here to feel, you came here to create that new light that comes forth. It is also that you could not know joy if you had not ever had the experience of feeling something other than that. Okay, if you're just walking, talking joy all the time, like you are when you are non-incarnate, when you are just simply within your highest light and the God force. You don't have a full and complete understanding or felt awareness, experience of that joy and love that you are resonating at electrically, because you have never felt anything different. It's like you wouldn't know what's going on. This would just be your normal. Someone who has felt something different can look and say, oh my gosh, that's joy. And they have such a great appreciation for it and an actual experience of what joy is when they have experienced the opposite, which is grief, you know? And so when we go into the emotion and we bring that diffusion and everything, and you allow your light force to finally be here, that healing resonance, that great beauty that occurs, that is just almost indescribable when you have transformed something, that is the creation point. That is the point that you are adding to the universe and contributing in a way that you may not even be entirely sure of. But that was the intentions here, is to keep making more and more light. And you really can't do that if you are unwilling to feel what you feel. And we need to really become aware that we are electrical. We are electrical beings. And so when you are practicing authenticity, meaning I feel sad today, saying it to yourself or others, being authentic, you are no longer there's an added bonus that you are not in kind of a war or a discordance with your own self, you know, between the part of you that's been resisting that. You have taken away the resistance, you are practicing allowing, and so you are in a greater resonance with your higher self, even if you're feeling that charge of sadness or something. There's something very interesting that happens. I remember when I was really noticing this, like, I don't know, I just had this awareness of like, oh my gosh, I can feel great depression and still be at peace, because the pain, not pain, rather suffering, is when you are not accepting what you are feeling or resonating at, what is, internally or externally. So peace is found in the acceptance of what is. And when you begin to allow these emotions, you actually begin to see that when I surrender into it completely and I'm like, yep, this is here, yep, I don't like it, but okay, it's here, they pass through and they diffuse so quickly, and you are in a peaceful state even though you are feeling what you're feeling. And throughout the spiritual community, I think that we need to understand that this is the larger intention, the greater intention. It's not about being high vibe. It's not about, like, in the way that we have meant it, or I've seen people meaning it. It's actually healthier and more in alignment for you to consistently be practicing the relationship with your distortions that your higher self has with them, which is one of love and acceptance. So it does no good to be like, I'm just going to focus on high vibes and I'm just practicing raising my frequency and that's all. That's great and that's helpful. That cultivates light, that cultivates harmonious resonance and a practice resonance for you to stay in alignment with your higher self, which allows, but it's like what you should be using that for is so that when you do have your lower chargers arising, you can meet with them and receive them with so much love and grace. This is about grace. And I think that I've noticed people just more kind of like, oh no, I'm not going to feel that because it's going to be low vibe, it's going to bring my vibration down. These things are within you, whether you acknowledge them or express them or heal them or not. We are all carrying these traumas, these energetic scars, you know, that is part of what we're doing here, and it's nothing that's gone wrong. This was meant to happen. This is being a human. We are here to bring that higher light to something that has become distorted and forgotten from that light. It forgot itself. And so we must not be in rejection for anything that we are feeling, and we must understand the power of this heart, this diffused higher self essence self that is found here in the centered lotus of your being. It was put here for you to hold and receive every aspect of yourself and of others as well, so that you can purify and you can have a peaceful life and end suffering. This is the end of suffering. Okay, you don't get rid of suffering by pretending that it's not there or going into higher states as a means of avoiding what is. We must bring light to our deepest pain and our deepest trauma. And we need to recognize that we are electrical and we are powerful in that way. This part here, the heart, this is your, energetically, it's actually a place of the 0 point field, which I have a video about, where it is gravitational, but it is also stillness. It isn't like a black hole, honestly. This is the place of manifestation, and it gets a little complicated, but it's also a place of complete diffusion and use for these lower emotions. So I'm just going to check on my board if I forgot anything. Let's see. And if this doesn't look good on the video, I'm going to put a still of this up. Okay, no, yeah, all good. Yeah, so just remember that your emotions are discordance or resonance with the higher self. You are an electrical, powerful being. You have a love center right here that is magical and wonderful, and you can bring this stillness, it is a practice, to allow that to hold distortion and things like that, to in time create new light. And it's the depth of consciousness and authenticity is the progression of that. It is the allowing of that. It is what we're doing here, and it is just beautiful.